What if I told you that behind closed doors the highest levels of American power might have been up for sale, not through lobbyists, not through super PACs, but through a shiny new cryptocurrency? A world where buying a few $1 million of digital coins doesn't just make you a speculator, it buys you a seat at a private dinner with the president, and maybe, just maybe, influence over national policy. Sounds outrageous, doesn't it? But that's exactly what came up in a Senate hearing, and the answers or lack of them should terrify every American. It started with a dinner. A very exclusive dinner. 220 individuals who had purchased the most of the president's personal meme coin were invited.
Justice and my budget for the upcoming year. I would think that you would want to talk about the leader of the Sinaloa cartel who was living in Oregon, one of the top leaders. I would think that that's what you would want to talk about with me. When we captured him, he had $3 million cash in his home.
Attorney General, I know that you avoided the same question on the House side, but what we know is that many folks who attended this dinner were buying those coins because they wanted to influence U.S. policy. We had Mr. Javier Selgas, the head of Freight Technology, Inc., who said, I bought $2 million of these coins. I plan to buy $20 million because I want a favor from the president to change the policy regarding freight from Mexico to the United States. This solicitation of investments in his personal product, his meme coin, led to many people who were coming from foreign countries attending that dinner. Don't you think the American people have a right to know? And you said yourself you're very concerned about foreign influence on our government.
Senator, it is wildly offensive that you would accuse President Trump of not protecting American interest in our country when he is the president that has shut down our borders, unlike Joe Biden. President Trump has done everything to make America safe, and you asked me the question, and keep America safe.
Do you
and
know
you're trying to play a gotcha question at a budget hearing when you have murders left and right in your state, violent crimes, and we are doing everything we can to help your liberal state. Whether you're liberal or not, we're going to do everything we can to help the citizens of your state, and you're trying to avoid that because you're trying to play a gotcha question with the President of the United States, and it's not going to work. We're here to talk about our budget for public safety.
I do believe that as the leader of the Department of Justice, you should be concerned about foreign influence. There was obviously a lot of foreign influence and individuals who said they were there for that reason. And so will you appoint a special investigator to make sure that that foreign influence does not affect the policies of the United States of America?
I'm not going to tell you what I will or will not do, other than I will do everything to keep the people of your state safe, even though you don't want to talk about anything to do with your state because of the crime in your state. You also voted no on the Laken Riley Act. We are doing everything we can to protect the citizens of this country. You also said that President Trump encouraged protest. It was the opposite. He's done everything he can to keep us safe, and he will continue to, as well as the Department of Justice.
It speaks volumes that you won't answer the question about transparency when the president is asking people to invest in his company and his products, and that foreigners are attending these events. I think transparency would be appropriate. Are you going to recommend any ethics guidelines to make sure that foreign influence does not find its way in through the doors of the White House?
How do you characterize foreigners, the illegal aliens that have flowed into our country? Is that who you're talking about? You don't want to talk about them. You don't want to talk about the crime that has gone rampant throughout this country and your state.
Well, you know, these hearings are a chance for us to ask questions, and I assure you I'm engaged in national security in many, many ways. But this also I am concerned about, and let me turn to a different piece of the puzzle, because the president also has another cryptocurrency called USD1. It is a stable coin. There was a request by UAE to produce AI chips that would go to UAE. The National Security Advisor of UAE is also the CEO of MGX. So after that request for those chips occurred, MGX then said, we will buy 2 billion with a B, of the president's coins. And then the president went to the Middle East and said, we will get you those AI chips. Does this sequence of events in which a foreign government asks for a big favor And we had previously banned these chips to UAE because of the national security concerns. Then they buy $2 billion of the president's coins, and then the president goes to the Middle East and says, we will provide those chips. Does that sequence of events concern you about foreign influence on the United States of America?
The foreign influence on America that I would be concerned about if I were you was the Mexican national that resided in Oregon, who we just arrested, who had 384 pounds of methamphetamine. The foreign individual who I would be concerned about if I were a senator from Oregon is the Honduran drug trafficker who was residing in Portland for distributing fentanyl. The foreign national I would be concerned about if I was a Portland senator, an Oregon senator, is a Mexican national leader of a drug trafficking ring. Another one, fentanyl, firearms, fatal overdoses, all in your state.
You have made your point.
57,700 fentanyl pills and stolen firearms in Oregon. That's what we should work together on, not gotcha questions during a budget hearing.
Let me recognize Senator Merkley.
Thank you very much, Mr.
It wasn't a state dinner. It wasn't a charity fundraiser. It was essentially a private party for coin holders. But here's the twist. Reports suggest that among those invited were foreign nationals, individuals with deep financial stakes and even deeper political interests. One executive was particularly blunt. The head of a freight technology company openly admitted that he had bought $2 million worth of the coin, planned to buy 20 million more, and expected a policy change in return, specifically to alter freight routes between Mexico and the United States. That's not a casual investment. That's a purchase of access. For the average American, a dinner with the commander-in-chief is unimaginable. But for those who could buy enough of a digital token, it was suddenly very real. And if foreign nationals were part of that group, the implications are staggering. But the dinner was just the beginning. Not long after, another story began to surface, one that made the dinner look small in comparison. The United Arab Emirates, through a major conglomerate tied directly to its national security advisor, was seeking access to advanced American AI chips. These chips had been restricted for export because of national security risks. The U.S. didn't want them falling into the wrong hands. And yet shortly after that request, the same UAE-linked conglomerate announced it would purchase a staggering $2 billion worth of the president's second cryptocurrency, a so-called stable coin branded USD1. Billions flowing in just like that. Then came the trip. The president visited the Middle East, and in what looked like a dramatic reversal, pledged that the restricted chips would indeed be provided. On paper it was a diplomatic deal. But when you line up the sequence, request for chips, multi-billion-dollar coin purchase, and then policy reversal, the picture looks less like diplomacy and more like influence peddling on a global scale. And yet when senators asked whether this was being investigated, the answers were evasive at best. During a tense budget hearing, a senator raised the question directly: were foreign interests attending private dinners as top coin holders? Were massive coin purchases being used as leverage for U.S. policy shifts? Instead of addressing the issue, the Attorney General pivoted. Rather than acknowledging or denying foreign attendance, she launched into a tirade about crime rates, cartels, fentanyl trafficking, and violence in the senator's home state. Important issues, yes, but completely unrelated to the question at hand. The senator pressed again, would there be an independent investigation into whether coin purchases were being used to buy political access? Again, no answer. More deflection. More talk about drug seizures and violent crime. It wasn't just a refusal, it was a deliberate avoidance. The kind of dodge that suggests not only discomfort but danger in admitting the truth. Because transparency wasn't the priority. The priority was shutting down the line of questioning before it went any further. Think about it. If foreign nationals can attend private events simply by purchasing enough of a digital token, what does that say about the state of American democracy? It's not lobbying, it's not campaign contributions, it's a whole new marketplace of influence. For decades, Americans have debated the role of money in politics: super PACs, dark money groups, corporate donors, all controversial, all powerful. But cryptocurrency introduces something even more slippery. Transactions are harder to trace, investors can be anonymous, and governments or corporations overseas can funnel money in ways that make campaign donations look quaint. If access to U.S. leaders can now be purchased like a commodity on the blockchain, the foundation of representative democracy begins to crumble. Because policy decisions stop being made for voters and start being made for investors, investors who may not even be American. And this isn't theoretical. It's already happening. The AI chip deal demonstrates the stakes. These weren't simple consumer products, they were advanced, cutting-edge chips with enormous implications for artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and defense. They were restricted for a reason, because allowing adversarial or untrustworthy states to acquire them could tip the balance of technological power. So when billions flow into a personal cryptocurrency and a national security restriction suddenly vanishes, the optics alone are alarming. Even if no direct quid pro quo can be proven, the perception is clear. America's security was potentially bartered for coin investments, and perception in geopolitics is just as dangerous as reality. Foreign adversaries are watching, allies are watching, and if they conclude that U.S. policy can be swayed through private crypto markets, the rush to buy influence will only intensify. The precedent has already been set. Here's where it gets worse. The Department of Justice, the very institution tasked with ensuring accountability, refused to engage. When asked whether a special investigator would be appointed, the Attorney General brushed it off. When pressed on ethics guidelines, she dismissed the question entirely. That silence speaks volumes. Because if the watchdog won't bark, the gate is wide open. There's no mechanism of accountability left. Think about the message this sends that a sitting or former president can intertwine personal financial products with public office, and there will be no scrutiny as long as political allies deflect hard enough. That's not democracy, that's oligarchy. That's pay-to-play on a global scale, and the silence of institutions makes it even more dangerous, because when rules aren't enforced, they stop existing altogether. It's tempting to view all of this as just another partisan fight. One side lobbing accusation, the other side defending furiously. But strip away the labels and you're left with something more fundamental, the integrity of American democracy itself. This isn't about left or right, it's about whether policy is made in Washington based on the will of voters or the wallets of investors. It's about whether national security decisions are made with America's best interests in mind or with coin purchases in the background. Democracy cannot survive if the highest office in the land is entangled with personal financial schemes that invite foreign influence. That's not hyperbole. That's the reality we are staring down. So where does this leave us? At a crossroads. Because if this moment passes without real accountability, it will become the blueprint for future leaders. Why rely on campaign donations or lobbying when you can launch a coin and rake in billions directly? Why worry about transparency laws when blockchain transactions can be hidden or anonymized? We could be looking at a future where American policy is auctioned off, coin by coin, token by token, to whoever can pay the highest price. Maybe it's a dictator overseas, maybe it's a billionaire with corporate interests, maybe it's a hostile government looking to undermine U.S. security from within. Whatever the case, it's a future where democracy doesn't survive in any recognizable form. And it's a future being normalized right now. At that Senate hearing, one senator put it plainly, the refusal to answer wasn't just evasive, it was dangerous. Because transparency isn't optional when national security and democracy are on the line. The American people have the right to know whether foreign interests are buying access through cryptocurrency. They have the right to demand accountability when policy shifts follow billion-dollar investments. And they have the right to expect that watchdog institutions will do their jobs, even when the questions are uncomfortable. Because if they don't, if foreign money can quietly buy American policy, then democracy as we know it will be nothing more than a slogan. And the real decisions will be made in private dinners, behind closed doors, with coin holders holding the keys. So the question isn't whether this moment matters, it's whether Americans are paying attention, because the future of democracy may well depend on it. If you believe that political profiteering and foreign influence have no place in our system, then do something about it. Stay informed. Share this message. Hold leaders accountable, because democracy isn't just defended in elections, it's defended every time citizens demand transparency and refuse to look away. And right now, the eyes of history are watching.